Action. Welcome back to Show and Tell. I'm Billie. Today I have a guest with me. In just a moment, I'll be introducing you to her. She lives close enough to me in Manhattan that we could have actually done this face to face. Instead, we're Zooming with one another from the comfort of our individual apartments. So, although she doesn't knit vintage, not that I'm aware of, she is quite an accomplished knitter with quite a collection of magnificent sweaters. So I hope that you'll enjoy this nevertheless. And I'm back. I'm back with my friend Jerri. Jerri and I have met in person, which is unusual for many of my guests because they're international. But Jerri happens to live a short walk from where I live. She's on a very posh street in Greenwich Village, one of the really beautiful streets in Manhattan, in a very interesting building. And she has a beautiful apartment. I've been a guest in her home when she was showing me her collection of sweaters. But let me take a step back to say, Jerri, how we met. Do you remember?
Of course I remember.
All right, so why don't you tell them?
Well, the way we met, we are both members of the BAKG. I call it the Guild. And if that's the story you're referring to, I had been knitting a very complicated sweater, and something happened where it had come to an end, but the sweater wasn't complete. There was something wrong. I've never yet figured out what was wrong. I needed help, and I was really kind of frantic. And friends at the Guild said, speak to Billie, she will help you. And
Now,
that's exactly what happened. I
for me,
explained the
it's
problem, and she came up with the solution.
for me, it's really hilarious because people think I'm like ace knitter, expert. I'm a good knitter. Jerri's a very good knitter. When she invited me to her apartment and started showing me all her sweaters, I was like, I don't know, this woman might be a better knitter than I am. What's the problem here? How come she couldn't figure this out? Well, we determined that the problem was math. I am an ace in mathematics. It is my background. So her problem was, I don't know if you have the sweater, if you're going to show
Of
that
course I
sweater.
do. Here it is.
Okay, but I can demonstrate that she knit a cardigan that was supposed to come up to here,
It ended here.
but it was only coming to here. And she wanted to fill in this area. And she wasn't sure how to do it because she had followed the instructions in the pattern to a T and couldn't understand why her neckline was jagundo when it was supposed to be up. So I did the math of how to decrease to get to the number of stitches that she would need for her sweater to be up here, while those decreases had to go this distance. And we measured on her, what's the distance from here to here on her body. She came up with how she was going to put the colors on because she'd come to the end of the motif that her pattern specified. So that's all her. The math was mostly me. Anyway, this was the reason why we met, because somehow the word got around that I do complicated stuff. So bring me your problems, everyone.
Well, since I've got this sweater here, if it's okay with you, Billie, I will talk a little bit about this particular sweater.
Lovely, go ahead.
Okay, so the story with this sweater is basically my life. I love color, and most of what I knit is very colorful, and I live a colorful life, even though my apartment is in subdued colors. However, this is the first sweater that I steeked. Now, many of you will know what steeking is, some of you will not. The abbreviated version of what is steeking is you cut into your sweater and you make a tube into a cardigan. Scary, and it is scary. Now, this was not a good first steeking situation because there are 15 colors in this sweater, and every color is an end. So in the end, I had a steeped sweater, a cardigan. I had the tailor put in a concealed zipper, which I'm very pleased with, but I had all these ends. What do I do with them? I must admit, I copied something I saw. I was not the originator of it, but what I copied was the idea of putting in a tape on the inside of the sweater, and it goes around the entire sweater down to the ribbing, and underneath this tape is like chop suey. It's a mess, but you don't see any of that. And so I'm very satisfied with, in the end, how this worked out. Steeking is scary, but it's doable. So don't be scared of doing it. So that's the story with this particular sweater. Since I knit slowly, I have no sense of rushing myself, and I don't care about rushing myself. I turn out very few items. I have friends that every month they have a new sweater. I don't do that, and that's fine. I use the old method, and I forget if it's the English method where you throw your yarn. I have no desire to learn the continental, which would speed up, but that's me. So I've now finished with that. And I am now starting to embark on a new sweater. And I'm just showing the beginning. This is a yarn that I happen to love. I've never used it. It's called Bamboo Blossoms by Universal. They make it in unlimited amounts of gorgeous colors. And I've always wanted to make it. So I am planning, and I have a picture, but I'm not even going to go through that. I'm just going to show you a little bit of how I do a plan. I've knitted using this yarn. This is a sample swatch. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know who's on this call. I swatch everything before I begin. And even then there are errors, but without that, I couldn't begin. And I'm sampling a stitch that I want to use, hard to see here, but I'm changing size of needles. I thought this for what I'm doing was a little too tight. The pink just separates the size needles. I've now decided it will be here. I'm going to be adding colors. Here's a wonderful mohair boucle. I have other colors. It's going to be fun, and I will need my friend Billie to help me with it, but this is just kind of how I start working on things. Now I can go to another sweater that I don't know.
I think that I want to tell people, or have you tell them, about the business, the very successful business that you had, which embodied your love of color.
Okay, I was in the fashion industry my entire working life, starting out as a dancer as a kid, a showroom model when I was 16, and then ultimately wound up with my own label, Jerri Sherman Limited. It was a successful business, and it existed for 15 years. And I made very beautiful silk blouses. I could pull one out, Billie. I would have to run to the other room and pull one out, but I don't know that you need me to do that or want me to do that.
Oh, I think it would be great. I think it would be great for people to see how the color thing happened.
I grabbed two blouses of different types. This is one where everything is placed, very detail oriented, very special. They were very expensive at the time. They retailed for $200. We're talking back in the late 80s.
Because they're pure silk, right?
Yeah, they're pure silk. They are now on, if you can get them, they're on eBay. I have nothing to do with that. They're used and people put them on eBay. I'm showing you this blouse, which was probably, I mean, I had many successful styles, but this was incredibly successful, very complicated to make. And I would recolor it. I would have my artists recolor this. So I have them in fall tones. And the customers, and I sold the very finest stores, Neiman's when it was the real Neiman's, and Bergdorf and Saks, and a little bit at Macy's, but basically fine specialty stores. So that's where my love of color comes from, and it stays with me, and I can't function without it. But having said that, I will show you a sweater that I know Billie admired, that is not colorful.
The purple one?
This one. The one with all the tassels. Let's see if I can get the tassels showing.
It's so sparkly. It's like my top. Sparkly.
Yeah, yes, yes. So that another thing that I do, and I always love a scarf, so I used Prism. You know, Billie, okay if I just mention names like that?
Yeah, of course, people want to know.
All right, Prism, in fact, I'm in communication with them now on my new project. They make, and I will say up front, very expensive yarns, but they are extraordinary. They are not duplicated anywhere else. And in fact, in the email that I got from the owner this morning, she said some of them have 30 different yarns within one skein. So I use them sparingly, but I do use them, and they do make a garment very special. And with this sweater, and I must tell you the story, here are these nice little dangles. It was a tough sweater to knit. I will tell you that many of my sweaters are very, very difficult to knit and come with their own problems. I have used Bergère de France patterns. They're beautiful. They're complicated, but they are beautiful. But all knitters know that as good as you are, you make mistakes. And the trick of being a good knitter is making a mistake, sometimes with the help of Billie and sometimes on my own. But on this sweater, and I thought I would cry, there are many times I thought I would cry. I finished the entire sweater, which took forever, and I have all these dangles, and I realize that the dangles on this side are backwards. And oh my God, what do I do? There was no way to rip out and redo. They were. So what I did was turn each dangle around, and in the back, sew it in the correct position, so that now it's fine. But at the time, my heart stopped, and I just wasn't sure what I could do. I mean, Billie, I'm having more fun in this call than I think anybody watching it, because it's bringing up so many memories.
So necessity is the mother of invention. You had a need and you had to solve the problem. I love it.
You know, stop me if you want me to, but a story comes to mind. Before I had my own business, I worked as a salesperson for a nice little junior sportswear company. And I got stop me anytime, Billie. I got a big order from Sears Roebuck, which at that time was like the Bank of England. I mean, that I came back with that order. I thought my boss would collapse. And how would I get it? I had a product for them, and they loved working with me. They were used to these old guys, and here was a young woman. And so we all became friendly. And I get this order, but that's not the story. Part of the order was 5 pieces: pants, jacket, blouse. So the deal was I made up the order. There were thousands of pieces, and the buyer, so they're all on racks in my office, and the buyer must come and examine and give her approval before the order can be shipped. So I decided to go and do my own approval before the buyer comes. And I go and I look at all these things, and I look at the blouses, which were just like a blouse like this. And I see that one side is down here. And one side is up here, and I start to sweat. Because I know if she sees this, she is not going to approve the shipment. So, I mean, I am devious, and here's an example. So I said,
So
what?
you stitched it down.
No,
Fix it.
no, what I did, because it was all buttoned up tight, but only one was down here. So what, and there were probably 300 blouses. So what I did was open it like here and pull them on the hanger so that it looked even. And she came, looked even, we shipped it. I never heard another word, but the truth of the matter, it was deformed.
Oh, you are lucky that they didn't return them all.
Absolutely, we never heard another word. I have other stories like that, but that's for a different kind of, I have great stories about the industry. And it was great fun. I do want to move on to my first Stephen West project. We're all familiar with Stephen West. He's extraordinarily talented. And this was my first Stephen West shawl. And I literally was afraid to knit one of his projects because they're so complicated. But he makes videos which are indispensable. Without the video to follow, I could never have made it. But here I did make this. And the yarns I used here, ChiaoGoo, is another yarn, fabulous yarn company from Canada. I've actually visited their farm and their factory up in Canada. I am spoiled. I do like to use good yarns, although my first multicolor sweater, the one I showed you, was not using expensive yarns. And they were very helpful, trying to coordinate colors. But I always do my own little addition, and it's hard to see here, but there's just a little sparkle in spots.
Do you
'Cause
know
I
the
know
name of the pattern?
Shawlology. SHAWLOGO.
OLOGY, Shawlology. Okay. When he wrote the pattern, how many colors did he call for? And did you use the same number of colors?
Yes, I use the same number of colors, but in spots that I would make a change, like these nubs are from a company called Art Yarns, which is also a very expensive company, but also their yarns are very unique. So I just popped it. But
That wasn't a color that you used elsewhere in the shawl. Just for
no, just there.
So you added in an extra color above and
Just,
behind.
yeah, I added just here. And here also, I added a special yarn to make it special. Somehow I do that in my life. I'm never satisfied. I've always got to make things more complicated. Usually it works out well, and this did. Also, it was the first time I had done brioche, and I have to be honest, I messed it up. I had to rip out this entire, because I will not accept a terrible mistake. I'll rip it out, and that's another thing. Knitters have to accept ripping out. And
For sure. I'm the queen. This crown right here.
And don't even think about it, because the joy is the knit. You know, there's many joys involved with this. There's color, there's style, but let us not forget the simple physical joy of knitting. For me, it is a physical joy, a relaxing Zen experience to knit. So even if I rip out, so what? It gives me another opportunity to knit, which I enjoy. So I had to do that. And So this was a thrill. At some point, I have other projects of his, a sweater of his that I have in mind.
I think it's good for people to know the name because on Ravelry, I'm sure they can find 1,000 other people who knit it. And you'll see that Jerri's colors are probably spectacular compared to many others. Because she has this gift with color.
Thank you, Billie, but I also, and you won't appreciate this, I hardly use Ravelry. I do not post my things on Ravelry. I am impressed with what they do. I have a stepdaughter who just won 4 blue ribbons out in Marin County. Who's a brilliant knitter. And she's got everyone, it's called Knit, she's called Knitty Wood. She's got every one of her products on Ravelry with total details of gauge and yarn. I don't do any of that. I have nothing on Ravelry. And I don't find that I personally have a need. I know friends that tell me they're on it for hours at a time. Okay, so, you know, so that's me, big deal. They are certainly very successful without interaction with me.
Well, if you're not using Ravelry, how did you come to find Stephen West pattern?
Oh, I never go to Ravelry for that. I go to Stephen West. He has a
To his
website.
website.
I go to his website.
But how did you know about him?
Oh, he's famous. I mean, I've been knitting for many years. Stephen West is very, I mean, how do I know half the things I know? I find them on the website or I go to the yarn shows, Vogue, but certain names like Kay Fassett. Now,
Oh,
you might, okay. I've actually met him at Peruvian Connections. He was making an appearance at the store, but I've followed his things because certain names just turn up over the years. But the best thing I find is I go online directly to the designer, to this, to that. I've gone on Ravelry. I'm not going to say I haven't tried, and I will blame myself, not Ravelry. I've gone on Ravelry looking for yarn that I can't find, and then I find it, and then it's in someone's stash and they're not selling it. Well, who needs that? I mean, it's unnecessary somehow. And I find all these unusual yarns. And I get hooked on being online, and all of a sudden the hours have gone by and I'm just investigating and finding weird stuff. I find stuff. eBay, okay. Etsy, okay. I don't know. But I'm not a Ravelry person, and everyone I know is, and they rave about it. It has not served me, so, you know, big deal. It doesn't serve me.
well, just a
Go
little
ahead.
for the viewers. I put together a short video because there's a woman in one of my other knitting groups who was like, you know, I've watched these YouTube videos on how to use Ravelry and I'm still befuddled. Billie, why don't you do a video on it? And even though that's sort of out of my wheelhouse, I did because I do use Ravelry. I think everybody uses Ravelry in a different way, but I will put a link here where you can go and watch my little video, which is kind of, you know, basic Ravelry stuff, how to find a pattern, how to find a designer, how to find yarns. If you're searching for something with a particular gauge, like let's say you have a fingering weight yarn and you want to look at only fingering weight cardigans that are lace, you know, there's a way to do that. You may be too creative and thinking outside the box, so you're coming up with your own stuff. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why it's not interesting to you, but for the rest of us, it's a really great tool.
So using this as an example, what I did, I get, we all get fashion catalogs. And so there was a sweater. I have a picture of it, but I don't know that it's critical. A sweater that I thought was okay. Now, the last thing I really need to do is buy a sweater, but the way they color blocked it intrigued me. So I bought the sweater and I have it in my drawer. And I'm using that sweater, and that's what I ultimately want to discuss with you, Billie. And I'm going to be blocking it with different positions, totally different from their colors, but I love the way they had did it in pieces and blocking. So that's something I never go on Ravelry to find a pattern. I don't know where I find them. I don't know. And as I say, I don't turn out that much. So I've got here, I'm gonna move this just for a second to show. I'm showing my bins.
Can you
My
also show the racks of sweaters so people can see what a huge body of work you have?
Well, I don't know what you can see.
Yeah, yeah. This is shelf after shelf stacked with
Well,
one gorgeous sweater after the next.
Well, thank you. I guess, but don't forget, I've been knitting for years. So, it's far fewer than many other people have. But here's a funny one that I made. And the only way I know the right way is that I had labels made. Where is my label? Which I suggest is fun for everybody. Here's a Jerri Sherman label. So the only way on this sweater I can tell the right way is I use the label as a guide. And this is a Faberge de France pattern, and it was just fun. If you can see that.
Oh, it's a bolero?
It's like a little bolero. And I must admit, I don't wear it all that often.
Oh, it's really fun.
It is fun and difficult, believe it or not, difficult to figure out how to put these ruffles. In fact, I haven't looked at this in ages. Maybe I'll wear it somewhere. But also, I find these companies are wonderful to work with. I have communicated with Stephen West's office. He's in Amsterdam, and what's funny, I was in Amsterdam and didn't realize that was his main office. Otherwise, I would have gone to the shop, which I did not do. So his people, I email them, and the return email, they come back with all the answers and welcome questions. The same thing with Prism Yarns. I'm in touch with her now. And she just replied to me, and ChiaoGoo, all of these companies, and even Art Yarns, if you go to them and respectfully ask a question, first of all, you're a customer, they want you to buy. And I have been buying. Today, there are no yarn stores. There's a few. I mean, I'm not saying there are none. There's Annie's, there's Nitty City, I'm here in New York. But basically, you can't find a lot at retail. And they know that. And especially expensive yarns, a store cannot afford to stock these expensive yarns.
In all the colorways and to have sweaters quantity.
They make 20 colors. It's ridiculous. They'll pick out 2 maybe to have.
I would say that's the reason I think I haven't opened a yarn shop. I think there's plenty of opportunity in Manhattan to have another boutique yarn shop, there's all these empty storefronts after the pandemic. It would be great, but the fear for me of having to stock inventory, which is, seasonal, you're not going to sell a lot of cotton and linen in the dead of winter.
Do not open a yarn store.
Of course.
I say that as a friend and as a businesswoman. Do not. open a yarn store.
Believe me, I've had my own businesses that involved inventory, and
Right.
I know all about inventory management. Yeah, but when things are seasonal, like the businesses I was in, costume jewelry and educational toys, not really seasonal. You know, a kid's gonna play with a puzzle, whether it's summertime or Christmas. So, yeah, with yarn, it's a whole other layer. And then all the different colorways, you know, with toys, it's not like
Yeah.
you don't have to stock it every which way. So I mean, I see it's a daunting kind of a thing, but it would be just a knitter's dream.
See, I find working with webs, and we all know webs. I mean, that's the biggest. They have a retail store that I once went to with the Guild, and once was enough. I don't have to go back. But they have an incredible website, and they have an incredible assortment of colors. And what's wonderful about them, and they also answer, talk to you. You can buy, when I made the 15 color sweater, in order to select 15 colors, I had to have 25 colors and make my selection from within the 25 colors. So with webs, they shipped me one ball each of 25 colors. I made my choices, and because I didn't disturb the original skein, they take it back and give you
Oh,
full
yeah.
credit.
All the
So,
big company, even
yeah,
overseas, they'll take things back, like Colormark, who I've ordered from. If you haven't used the cone and you can return it
yeah,
to them. Who wants to pay the shipping back, though?
of
That's
course,
the downside.
yeah. But so there are many ways to do this. But I did find another, again, I don't know how I find them, but you poke around online and you find them. I found a company called Halcyon, and I got a notice from my doorman. There is a package for me. I am hoping, and I believe it is the package from them for $3.75. They are sending me a color card because they have many colors. And they were kind enough to, and I said to them, could you include just enough of any color so I could knit it up just to get a sense of it? So they said that they would include that. And so I may go with this company. Oh, so this was from Halcyon, and I'm most eager. As soon as this call is done, I'm going to go find my package and see what's in it.
Well, since we're talking Manhattan yarn shops, I want to put in a little plug for Nitty City, because you mentioned color card. Nitty City has the color, it's like a book practically, it unfolds in 3 panels. The color card for Cascade yarns, Cascade
Yeah,
220, I think, because there are just simply too many colors for them to stock all of them. They stock many, but not all. And when I was looking for a bunch of different colors that all coordinated, I picked them off the color card and they special ordered them for me. I was not obligated to buy them if they came in and I didn't like them. So that's also very, very special. You know, if you're a retailer, the customer, what did they used to say? The customer's always right, but it's really about, if you care about your customers, you're going to get their business. So it
so
behooves them to bend over
my
backwards.
my experience with Nitty City, and they are wonderful, and we all miss Pearl, who died, the owner. I ran out of a mustard color. And Nitty City always comes up with like the missing thing. And I went to them and I showed them the color, and they didn't have it in the bins. But apparently, I've never been there. Apparently, they have a basement where they must stock thousands of balls or skeins of yarn. And she said, I think we have that color downstairs. And it wasn't a cascade color here, but she brought up a cascade ball that was exactly the right color, but it wasn't in her wall bin. But she knew, they're very knowledgeable, they're salespeople. And she knew that
Very.
and they're very nice. They're very
I
nice.
mean, the same thing happened to me. I was using, well, I went there looking for a yarn that had like navy blue and some other colors in it. And I found a malabrigo yarn. This was years ago when I took up knitting again for the 3rd time. And each skein is a slightly different color. There's no dye lot. And a woman who was there who I became friendly with, Barbara, they used to all sit around this big table in the back. She opened up the skeins. She was a customer, but you know, a good customer who spent a lot of time there. She opened up the skeins and spread them out. And she said, you really have to do this because you want to see how the colors are all laid out. They went down into the basement and they brought me up like a dozen different skeins of that colorway for me to choose the ones that had
Yeah,
like a little touch of hot pink and green along with the navy and a little purple. So I could pick my own sort of, you know, color ways. But yeah, I knew about the basement because they went down there to get me a bag of stuff.
yeah, no, they were very, oh, that's my dog barking. I don't know why she's barking, but we're gonna ignore her. So Billy, I can do. I don't know what she's talking there. I can do whatever you want, or maybe this is enough for your friends.
Oh, no, let's see some other things, something that,
Okay, let me
something that
just.
you
Let me
especially
see.
love.
Talking about. Poo-poo, what's the matter? What is the matter? I'm having a great time, Billy. We can stay here all afternoon.
I know, that's why I said, let's limit it. Let's start later, because I know you have to go.
No, oh my God, I do, but I
Well,
can.
not yet, it's
I'm
it's not
fine,
like
I'm
11.
fine. This is a picture of the sweater that I bought and I own. And this is the sweater that I want to copy the blocking. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I don't know yet what colors are gonna go where or how, but this is how I start. And everything I make, none of it is really straightforward. So I'm starting on this, and I also wanted to show you, this is what they call, I never knew the term. This is a winding. That's what they call this. This is from Prism, that company that makes these extraordinary yarns. This is one yarn, and this is their yarn. They call it light stuff. And this is the gelato color. Oh, I should get, okay, so I go on their website. And it's a gorgeous website. They must have 20 plus different yarns. And with each yarn, they have a complete color selection. So you click on light stuff and 20 different colorways turn up, and they're good pictures, but nothing is as good as the actual. So I got this from her, which is an accommodation. She's being very nice. So this I realized 2 years ago, I have not had communication with them. And now I want light stuff, but in a blackish colorway that'll go with the new thing. So I am going, because she just emailed me this morning to say how difficult it is to do, but she will try and accommodate me. So I'm going to send her a picture of what she did do for me 2 years ago. She may not even remember. But now I need this in a colorway that can work with this. And you can't know till you hold them together. Even if a picture is good, you just can't tell. I may put it in a little stripe. I may put it in a pot. I don't know yet. And that's the fun of what I do, because it just kind of grows from my thinking.
So
And
with that, you don't have a base pattern for a coat. You're
no,
gonna figure out the measurements that you want and how many stitches and how long to make it and how to design where the sleeve connects to the body. You're gonna do all that yourself?
well, in this case, I want it to be exactly the size that this is. So once I determine how I'm going to use the yarns, then it's a matter of mathematics. I mean, it'll be fun to work with you on this, Billy, but basically I'm not going to change the length or the width. I just have to plug in the gauge of what yarns I'm going to use.
But you've done this kind of thing before, right?
No, I've never done
The
this.
purple kimono that you wore at the Guild, did you not design that?
I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
It's a purple one with little sparkles. It was like a kimono shape. A coat.
My- The big hot pink one?
I think it
I
was
have,
purple.
I have, do you mean this one?
No,
Are
but show us that. Show us that. You might
this-
want to show us something that's got, your color touch to it.
All right, I
It's
will.
solid. I mean, but show it because you have it.
See, here's the label, so I know it. Now, this is also tough. This is a Faberge de France pattern. I wear
Oh,
these things.
look at all the textures. Oh, Jerry, I didn't see that one.
It's in my shelf. So, yeah, I don't do anything that's simple. I really don't. Simple doesn't interest me.
I'm a member of that club too.
Yeah, and I met a couple of knitting friends for lunch at a wonderful cafe near me, Ariston. And I'm, showing them I'm planning to do this and this, and they're experienced knitters and they knit all the time. And they're showing me these boring tank tops and baby hats. And I'm thinking, how can people want to just do that? But what I was going to
Now, don't be judgmental.
I know. Look, what I do is insane. And every time I finish a product, I say I must have been crazy to start that. But it's just me. I'm not being judgmental. I mean, I sound it, but I respect whatever anyone does. So maybe, I don't know, there's so much here. Okay, I've made this, you talk about kimono. I've made this several times in different, and I think this was a pattern in a book. And I picked, also tricky to do. And I use ChiaoGoo yarns. I see the color does not look as attractive as it really is. I'm looking at the screen, so it's not nearly as subtle in reality. But I've
This
made
is a really good example of your eye for color because
Yeah.
I think most people would be tremendously afraid to use more than one yarn in a project that was variegated. Like 2 different, 3 different, 4
three
different variegated yarns.
and 3 solids. But I will show you, I may not have shown this to you, Billie, a kimono, this shape that I did create. This, everything I do, as I say, is complicated.
I'm so
This-
glad you're willing to share this all with us.
Oh, are you kidding?
A
This
treat.
is a treat for me. I mean, me and the moths. I mean, who looks at these things? Okay, so this is that same shape. I'm also very enthralled with squares, and I incorporate them in many things. So now, what makes this so special? And this is also ChiaoGoo yarns. What makes this special is that, and all this, and I have all these papers in my files. This was all worked out on a graph because I have, let's see now, I think I have 3 variegated, 1, 2, and again, they won't show up properly, 3 variegated and 3 solids. So I didn't want to have any same things hit each other. So I had to work out all the colors so that nothing hits each other. And then I used lace patterns, which I love to use, and I get them from the lace book. So this I actually did put together. And I determined that I needed, I don't know what it is, 5 by 5. So I used all different lace patterns. I never repeated any of the lace patterns in the same colors. And I wanted them to be spotted around. So this all, it takes me more time to prepare the sweater almost than to knit it. And so you'll see yellow, but you'll never see it in the same pattern. And also, and this is where it can get very tricky, each pattern requires different number of stitches, different gauge. So I would be changing size needles. I would have to make a swatch. I would decide, okay, yellow, I want to use pattern 1. I'd make a swatch of the yellow until I found the right gauge, the right needle to give me my gauge. Because with lace patterns, they take X stitches and you can't mess with that. It takes those stitches and you can't add 2 if you need more or take away 2. You've got to use that. So the way I determine that is with the size of the needle, so that every patch required a swatch. So you can just, that's why when I'm finished, I look at it and I say, I must have been crazy to do that. But that's
Anybody watching, please comment and let us know if you would ever undertake such a complicated thing where every single square required a swatch. Most people don't even want to swatch, period.
you must swatch. You must swatch,
Of
and
course.
even then there are errors.
Yeah.
I mean, I could pull out a million things, but I don't want to take more of your time. But I am having the best time, Billie.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
so
I'm
much
happy.
fun, but I have to say before I let you go that, how can I say this? It's not just the use of color and the love of color, but a deep interest in art.
Oh, yes.
And Jerri was very gracious to show me some of her art collection, including an artist. Now, you'll be surprised that I saved this,
Oh, the
but
show is ongoing now.
yes, until August 8th. So if you're in New York, you have an opportunity to see at Queens College.
It's in Queens. It's not in Manhattan. It's not in Manhattan. It's in
Queens
Queens.
College in Flushing, paintings by John Hunter.
Yes.
And in this exhibit is one of the paintings that Jerri owns. And I think I still have the snapshot that you sent me of you with the artist in front of your
Yes.
painting, which I'll include here so people can see. It was a spectacular show. This man donated his collection of paintings that have not been purchased to Queens College for their museum. And they have an art program where they felt like students could really benefit from seeing how a collection is curated and how it's hung and all of that. So it was very interesting to go out there with Jerri and some of her friends to see it. They're very colorful. So that was like a very magical night. Thank you for
Oh, thank you, Billie.
doing that
Billie,
again.
Billie and I met, and then she came over to help me when I needed all the help on that other sweater. And I will say, Billie, I bonded with you. I don't know if you bonded with me.
Well, obviously, or I wouldn't have invited you to come on my program.
But, I just feel it's an ongoing friendship that we may even talk about things that are not knitting related, but those are those can be private talks. But in any event, I've enjoyed meeting you. I'm having a great time on this talk. Um, what can I say? I'm eager to go and check what came in the mail because I think it's my color card, so that'll be fun.
Well,
And
you know
now,
what they say, opposites attract. I am black and white, some gray. This is unusual for me. That's my pop of color, red foyer with I made this painting. Copy
did you?
of a copy of a Tamara de Lempicka. Because she's so highly collectible now. Her work is in the collections of people like Madonna, Barbra Streisand, Jack Nicholson. They go for millions and millions of dollars. So I knew I could never have an original. And I thought, well, I would really love to have that. It's the only painting hanging in our apartment. And I have one photograph of John Sexton that was collected by my dad. A beautiful black and white print, and some sculpture, but you have an apartment filled with paintings and sculpture.
Some.
I'm like very streamlined. I love Art Deco, so it's not super colorful usually. At least the period of Art Deco that appeals to me most, which is very, 40s Hollywood, silver screen kind of, very plain, unlike you. And I think it carries over into my knitting. I mean, I do, of course, use color, but not in the way that you do. Like, here's an example. Well, this is, white, no color, but it's not solid white. I did put a little gray trim on. I'm not usually using more than 2 colors. And I probably won't include this, but just between us, I want to show you. Because you saw it at the inception.
I think it's fabulous.
I've done part of the front and part of the back.
I just don't understand why you felt it was so problematic.
And I'm working on the sleeves.
Oh, nice.
So
Very.
that,
Well,
that's
maybe
my use of color.
Well, maybe I'll get you out of your safe zone.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy being in this zone. Because I really like vintage things, and vintage things are not, unless they're Fair Isle, which I did a Fair Isle just to have that experience of 9 colors, but they're usually of the period, and that was not the look. I did knit a Stephen West sweater for my son, so that's got a lot of colors going on. And I knit a shawl for my husband that had 3 colors. Were all 3 of them variegated? I think 2 of the 3 were variegated, but shades of grays and white and black, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm just.
No, I'm
Right.
happy. I'm happy in my corner of the world.
I'm trying to, I don't know if I can find it. I know it's here somewhere. A Stephen West thing. I'm not gonna bother now.
I'm surprised you haven't done his penguono.
I'm not, I don't like do one after another of a thing. Like I did a shawl. I'm not gonna do another shawl.
Do you know penguono?
I know the name.
It's a jacket with as many colors and types of yarn, could be different textures of yarn. It's like a
I'm
mashup. Now,
I'm
see,
sure I've seen it.
you won't know it unless, well, I guess you can find it on his website, but like that's the kind of thing I would immediately like shift onto Ravelry, pull up Penguono, you can see 1,000 different versions of it. No 2 are alike because he gives you a lot of latitude. I know someone who made it, and I've seen many other versions of it. They are completely different.
I'm sure I'm familiar with it, and for whatever reason chose not to pursue it, because the name is familiar. I know.
I think you would love it.
No, but I think I'll take a look again, but I'm
It's
pretty sure.
unstructured, you know, and
I know, I hear you. I hear you. Um, who knows what turns you on or doesn't turn you on.
yeah, I mean, for you, it seems more about the color than about the shape.
Don't know. We'll only know when I see it. But I'm sure I've seen it because the name is too familiar.
Hmm.
It may even be in a book of his. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. Whatever. I will take a look at it based on what you had to say, and we'll see. And we'll see. So I again, I can go on forever, but I'm sure your folks are.
Me too. I could go on forever too. That's why I said, like, we gotta set a limit, otherwise we'd be here for 17 hours.
It's the truth. It's the truth. So it's now a little after 11.
Yeah, this is probably a good place to wrap up.
Yeah, in fact, I will mention where I am going, should I decide to do it, which I probably will. I wanted to, and I know there are many, many group knits get together all over the city.
Mhm.
I'm aware of that, but I found one that I went to a couple of weeks ago that I've decided I have too many things going on in my life. I don't need many. I need like one. So I found one. It's held on Fridays at I think it's 1:30. Oh, in fact, I'll show you my calendar to show you how I even use color there. Here's my daily calendar. So I use color all the time. So today they meet at 1:30 at the Niakos Library, right opposite the public library,
Oh, it's so beautiful there.
41st Street and on Fifth Avenue.
On the
On-
roof?
No, on the
Okay.
main floor.
Oh,
The library, I haven't been there since it was mid-Manhattan. That was 20 years ago. It is gorgeous and open and huge. And on the first floor, you go through the revolving doors, and there's a big space on the left. And it's really a craft meetup. There are people knitting, crocheting, weaving, beadwork,
hmm.
rug work, a million things, the friendliest, loveliest group. So I just sat at the knit table and everyone was lovely, and many of them know each other because they go all the time. But I think I like the vibe at that place. I don't need, there's another one that's also nice that meets on Saturday. If I use that one, that's enough. I have enough other stuff going on in my life. But I just recommend it if anyone is looking for somewhere in Manhattan. It's on Fridays at, what did I say, 1:30, 12:30? What did I say? I don't
Be
even
sure and
remember.
go up to the roof because they have a beautiful outdoor space. And they also have a cafe up there,
They have a cafe on the
a
seventh.
lovely cafe.
Yeah, but the group meets on the first floor, and these days, who wants to be outdoors anyway? But in
No, but the
any
cafe is indoors.
Yeah, no, I realize that, but it's all floor to ceiling glass. So you're looking out at everything. So the whole feeling is of space. And what I found just by wandering around, they have a big table on the first floor where they have jigsaw puzzles set up. And anyone who wants to can walk over there and spend time on the jigsaw puzzle. So, I mean, these are cute things.
Yeah, well, New York Public Library is a wonderful institution. It's really incredible. I mean, some of the people I've interviewed have written books, and those books are in the library, so I've been able to borrow them. I haven't had to buy every single book. But if there's a book that you want that they don't have, at no cost, they will get it from a different library system
Right.
anywhere. I don't know if it's international, but certainly throughout the United States. and they get it and they send it to whichever branch you want to go pick it
Yeah,
up from. So that's been really helpful to me sometimes if I'm looking for something that's just not in their collection. I mean, they can't have every single book, but they do have a lot. I know that the main library, the one that's now called Stephen A. Schwartzman. Yeah, here's a story. He donated, from what I understand, $100 million, and they changed the name from being the 42nd Street
yeah,
Library to the Stephen A. Schwartzman Library. When my husband and I were in Paris a couple of years ago to see the Schiaparelli exhibit, his name was on top of the gallery where the exhibition was. I don't know that I should mention the name of the high school, but I guess people can find out. I grew up in Philadelphia, but my father and his wife that he married after my mother lived in the suburbs. Stephen A. Schwartzman went to a high school in suburban Philadelphia, to which he donated a mere $25 million. High school.
right.
He's also donated to Yale and other places, but the high school would not put his name on any building or change the name of the school or anything. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I think he got off kind of light, 100 million, to have the main New York Public Library building named after him. But the whole thing, that building is so magnificent. So if you're a tourist planning to come to New York, don't miss that building. It's catty corner to the building that Jerry's talking about, the Stavros Niarchos branch, which is, I think, 40th and 5th. But the main,
41, yeah,
is it 41?
I
No,
believe 40.
I think, well, no,
Doesn't matter.
the main library goes from 40th to 42nd. So it has to be like 40th. Because
Doesn't matter, you can't miss it, you can't miss it.
41st Street is a street that runs into the library. It's called Library Walk. And in the sidewalk, there are all these plaques with quotes from famous books or little poems. That's a really interesting attraction. But the building, the main original building, my father used to spend a lot of time there when he was growing up in New York. And it has a phenomenal research library. I mean, I've done genealogy research and they have old city directories from all cities around the world. I mean, they just have everything. They have a map room if you're looking for unusual maps of faraway places. It's a really exotic thing with all kinds of globes on display. I mean, it's an incredible New York institution. And yeah, we're lucky that we have a lot of billionaires here who help fund these things for people like us.
Us poor slobs. Yes, anyway, so thank you, Billy, for this opportunity. I hope your
Oh.
listeners or watchers have enjoyed it. I've had a great time.
Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing some time with us and sharing some of your work. Happy knitting, stay cool. So
Yeah, and if any of you watchers have any questions or anything, you can pass them to me. I mean, I don't know that they do, but if they do, and it's something I can answer, please let me know.
it's a cool day here in New York at 80. It's been in the
Very
90s a lot, and I know it's going back up next week. So I'm gonna say stay cool. Thank you for offering to take people's questions. Just, leave your questions in the comment section below and I can hook you up if you need to, since you can't find her on Ravelry. All right, Jerry, thank you so much. I'll see you in the neighborhood.
Okay, sweetheart. Bye-bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.